it's all rather despondent. Saying goodbye is never a pleasant thing. I enclosed some photographs of the citation for the last bar which I thought you'd like to see. I've been offered a very interesting job. I'll let you know more about it later. I'm pretty certain I'm going to accept. The more I think about being a solicitor again, the less I like it.
I think he was badly treated because there was such talent that wasn't used. His style of warfare and battle planning and this type of thing would have been a godsend in the days of the Egyptian campaign, Palestine problems, but they just dropped Paddy.
Rather than return home to his mother and family, and still looking for adventure, Mayne joined a 2-year expedition to map the frozen terrain of Antarctica. He wouldn't last 2 months. The expedition soured. Mayne found himself a mere second in command, and according to a colleague was very restrained and out of character. More significantly, Mayne suffered from severe back pain incurred during the war. For days he was unable to move from his tent. Plenty of time to face again the realities, the images and losses internalized during 5 years of war.
My back started getting much worse on the way down to the Falklands, hurting me at night. I tried it out pretty strenuously when we arrived there. It lasted the first day all right, but on the second it went badly, agonizing. Talk to paralysis and serious trouble. So I'm going home. It's still hurting me quite a bit. I think the movement of the ship caused a lot of trouble.
It wasn't the geological and meteorological expedition that he went off to in the Arctic had its problems. Reading his diaries, the leader was being led, and I don't think he was terribly impressed by the leader.
He was looking forward to going on, more trips, more adventure, and to find himself that he could do nothing more than come back home and tend the garden. For somebody who had been an international rugby player, boxing, shooting, war, it must have been very difficult to come back to a mundane life with no excitement. He was in plaster, full plaster, which he could not take off for months, which meant he couldn't bath, shower, do anything. He eventually got fed up with it and cut the plaster off with garden shears. And it must have been very difficult for him to be tended by his brothers and sisters.
Blair Mayne returned to Newtownards in early 1946 to considerable local publicity, which he spent the rest of his life trying to avoid. Now, 31 years of age, Mayne turned his back on the war. He avoided regimental reunions and seldom referred to his time in the SAS. He became a secretary to the Law Society, a tame position for a man of action.
I mean, that would drive most people to suicide, to be secretary of the Law Society in Northern Ireland as the solicitors. And it certainly, I don't think, appealed to Blair Mayne. It was a means of an income for a man's stature. But he didn't need stature.
I think it must have been a very difficult experience settling to civilian life and to something as dull and circumspect as being Secretary of the Law Society.
We do say that if the Guinness Book of Records had a heading, the longest Irish party, it would have been attributed to Blair Mayne, because he started the party after war and it lasted for 10 years, till his untimely death.
His pattern of wartime drinking and violence continued in peacetime. Publicans only tolerated his destructive nature because Mayne immediately paid for any damages. And when constables were called to any of Mayne's disturbances, they made sure to arrive in a large group.
He couldn't do anything that he enjoyed, even standing to watch a match. He was in too much pain that he could not do it. And for someone like Bear to be crippled like that, as he was, must have been hell.
The realization of what was ahead was by then clear to Mayne. A life that had been crammed with action and adventure was now facing a radical change. Routine and civilian life. All the things he excelled at, he could never do again. Rarely mixing with wartime colleagues and with no close friends and in considerable pain, there was very little for Mayne to look forward to. One thing he did cherish was his sports car, which he drove with great speed and was known to weave around lampposts as though on a commando training course. One night in December 1955, at the age of 40, Mayne was drinking in a pub, playing poker. After closing, he visited a friend's house, where he had more drinks. He left at 4 in the morning in his sports car.
After having survived so many perils during the war, he met his death in a road accident in Newton Ards. A lorry had been left without lights, standing in the main street, and he collided with it as he drove home. I went over to take the funeral, and it appeared that everybody in the north of Ireland had come too. It was a massive event. Well, there were hundreds of people there. I had the impression that everyone in the north of Ireland had turned out. Businesses closed, shops were closed. The country came to a standstill in deference for this extraordinary man.
Paddy was unique. He was unique on the rugby field, and he was unique as a soldier. You don't find two Paddys in this world. Thank God we don't.
I thought he was invincible. You know, I thought he'd live forever. I just couldn't believe that a man could be killed.
Paddy Blair Mayne was without doubt a great war hero. His determination, enormous physical strength, and lightning-fast reactions helped him survive the war. But the resolve and ability needed to cope with this contrasting mundane life was something that eluded a complex and enigmatic man.